Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. So we were covering the different causes of revelation of ayat, and we came to the point where Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions that wafaqtu rabbi fi thalathin. On 3 occasions I had a desire in my heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed ayat in accordance to what I had desired or what I had mentioned. And this is one example that we covered in, I cannot say necessarily significant detail last night, but we did cover the translation of the ayat from Surah Tahrim briefly, and we began the discussion on the hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari regarding Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's story with respect to Surah Tahrim and some of the lessons that we can learn from it. So as I had mentioned last night, there is a long hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, and I had said we will start with that tomorrow. So alhamdulillah, it is quite a long hadith. May Allah reward our beloved colleague Qari Mahir for putting it up. But when you look at it, it may seem a bit daunting. So, but we'll go slowly through it, and if we get to the end of this hadith, that will be, inshallah, perhaps sufficient for tonight. So I'll try to go over the Arabic, and we'll have the English side by side. You can look at the English as well. First thing to note here is that Kitabun Nikah. This comes in the book of Nikah. So this hadith does not only come, instead of reading ahead, my humble suggestion would be that if you stick with me, we're going to go through each line. So I know there's usul and etiquettes of everything, and there are usul and etiquettes also of PowerPoint presentations. And one of them is that you don't put a lot of text out there. But the nature of this hadith is such that there is so much text, I could have just left it, but I wanted you to be able to see the translation so that we can learn from the multiple lessons that will come along the way. So I can assure you we'll be going through each line. So you don't have to start reading ahead. So first thing here is Kitabun Nikah. This hadith comes in the book of marriage. One thing to note about Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi sahih is that the biggest thing about his book is Fiqh al-Bukhari fi tarajimihi. Of course, from the sanad perspective, his book is Asahul Kutubi ba'da Kitabillah. The most rigorously authenticated book after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The chain of narrators are of the highest caliber. But another aspect of Imam Bukhari rahmatullah's book which is very unique is how he puts the different chapter headings and he proves different points from the ahadith. And that is a very famous statement among the scholars, that Fiqh al-Bukhari fi tarajimihi. The true genius of Imam Bukhari and his jurisprudence and his understanding of the hadith can be seen from how he brings the same hadith multiple times and he proves different points. When I say same hadith, there is another interesting point here. It's fascinating on the fact that the same hadith comes so many times, but at the same time, it's not the exact identical hadith either. Meaning, every time, so first of all, why does he bring the hadith many times? It's because each time he's bringing the general hadith, he's proving a different point. So this hadith, for example, is under Kitabun Nikah. What is the bab? Babu mu'izatir rajuli ibnatahu lihali zawjiha. This is the chapter where there's a wa'adh and a speech. This wa'adh is not in the masjid. This is a wa'adh not by some wa'adh advisor speaking from the pulpit. This is the wa'adh and advice of a man, ibnatahu, to his daughter. So the father is advising his daughter, lihali zawjiha, regarding her husband, meaning fulfilling the rights of the husband, to be a good wife to your husband. So this is a chapter where there's a long hadith as we've been talking about since last night. Oh my God, it's long. But the point he is deriving from this hadith is just one point at this juncture, which is in this hadith we can see the father is advising his daughter. Which father? Umar radiallahu anhu will be advising which daughter of his? Hafsa radiallahu anha. Regarding her husband, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he advises his daughter and he tells her that, what are you doing? He actually gets a bit quite upset. I had to tone down the translation because of how it was initially literally translated, it seemed like quite, it may come off as scolding aggressively, in fact, his daughter about the right of the husband. So, but this is, are we doing Kitab al-Nikah now after Isha? No, we're doing tafsir. So this same hadith actually comes in Kitab al-Tafsir. It comes in Kitab al-Tafsir under which one? Which bab do you think? Babu Tafsir of Surah Tahrim. The chapter on the Tafsir of Surah Tahrim. From Surah Fatiha till Nas. All the different surahs of the Quran, the different ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explaining those surahs are found in the Kitab of Tafsir, in the book of Tafsir, in Sahih al-Bukhari. So it comes there as well. It comes, in fact, other places as well, within Sahih Bukhari. So that's one beautiful thing where the hadith comes so many different times. And each time it comes, there's a different point being derived. So that's the fact that the hadith is coming multiple times. But as I said, it's not identical either. Meaning, even if he brought the exact same hadith with the same chain of narrators and the same text, matan and sanad both, it still would not be a futile exercise. It still there could be no allegation or a blame that this is without purpose, because he's proving a different point. That's sufficient. But he didn't want to do that. So every single time he brings the same hadith, there will be a slight different change in the chain of narrators. That I know this hadith, this incident, I can prove it through a different chain. There will always be a different chain, and there will be a little bit difference in the wordings. So this is actually not the longest version. The other versions are actually even longer than this one, have more details. But I think this particular version is sufficient for our discussion. So did we understand that? That if somebody says that no hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari is repeated, that's correct. And if somebody says so many hadith are repeated and each time a new point is derived from it, that's also correct. How are these two statements correct? Because the general hadith is narrated multiple times. Each time something unique is being derived. But if you go down to the nitty-gritty details, there's always going to be something slightly different. They're not exactly identical. Is that clear or is that too complicated? Make sense? Okay. So over here, we're just skipping the whole sanad between Imam Bukhari and Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhum for now. But he goes, there will be a chain. Imam Bukhari did not hear directly from Abdullah bin Abbas. He has his teachers between him and Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhuma. He was not a tabi'i, he came later. But he says, and Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he narrates from Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhuma, قال لم أزل حريصا أن أسأل عمر بن الخطاب عن المرأتين. That I continually had this desire in my heart. I was haris. That I want to ask Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhum regarding anil mar'atain, regarding the two women. Min azwaj al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allataini qala Allah ta'ala, concerning whom Allah ta'ala has said, in tatuba ila Allah faqad saghat qulubukuma, that if both of you make tawbah to Allah ta'ala, then that's the condition, shart. Then the jaza is, what's going to happen is not mentioned here, but it means that if you make tawbah, Allah will forgive you. And why you need to make tawbah to Allah Ta'ala, two women? فَقَدْ صَغَتْ قُلُوبُكُمَا, because your hearts have inclined to do that which displeases Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So over here, we see one thing. Number one is that lam azal harisan. I continually had this desire, haris. So just from this word, short lesson is that subhanallah, the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in had hirs and desire for knowledge. And as I said, this is a shorter version. In Kitab al-Tafsir of Sahih al-Bukhari, under Surah Tahrim chapter, if you look at this, there's a further detail there. There's a ziyada there that's not here, in which is that when he asks the question, he literally tells Umar radiallahu anhu that I have been waiting for sanatan, for an entire year. I had this desire to ask you this question for a whole year. And I'm looking for the opportunity, but you have so much hayba, so much ru'ab, and so I'm so afraid of disturbing you that I never found the right chance, the right opportunity. Subhanallah. Even though I've been waiting for an entire year to ask you this question. And then Umar radiallahu ta'ala in the same, again, the same narration, same but not identical. The one with the more detail in Kitab al-Tafsir of Sahih Bukhari. Then Umar radiallahu says, oh nephew of, oh cousin of Rasulullah, why did you wait so long? Why are you so shy to ask me? If you have a husn dhan and good opinion that you think I have knowledge about something, he asked it in a very, he replied in a very respectful manner. He didn't say, yeah, I know, since I know so much, you can ask me anytime. He didn't say that. He said, if you think perhaps that I may have some information about something, then absolutely do not hesitate to ask me. That was his response. I threw that in there because it's not here. But what we do see here is the word haris. May Allah Ta'ala give us the hirs and the true desire for knowledge. This is something that, I don't know, maybe I could say it's an acquired taste, because the nafs ammara bisu and the environment is not going to allow us to taste the sweetness of knowledge. But once we get hooked onto it, then there's nothing that can be sweeter in the world. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself said, "Man humani la yashba'ani, man humun fil ilm la yashba'u minhu, ومن هو في الدنيا لا يشبع منها ولا يستويان أما صاحب العلم فيزداد رضا الرحمن وأما صاحب الدنيا فيتمادى في الطغيان." There's a lot of alif and nun za'idatani in this. So he goes, the manhumani, they're two greedy people, la yashba'ani, who are never satiated, their stomach is never full, they always want more. They're haris. They're greedy for more. Two greedy people. Manhumun fil ilm, the one who has the greed for knowledge, la yashba'u min. He's never done, okay, that's enough. He always wants more and more and more. وَمَنْهُمًا فِي الدُّنْيَا, and the one who has the greed for the dunya, لَا يَشْبَعُ مِنْهَا. He's never also filled. He always wants more and more and more. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. The desire for more and more will bring destruction upon you. حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ, until you enter your graves. It's not just until you visit a grave, but until you enter, which grave? Your own grave. Right? لَوْ كَانَ لِبْنَ آدَمْ وَادٍ مِّن ذَهَبٍ. If a son of Adam has an entire valley full of gold. What do you mean a valley full of gold? What is a valley? A wadi is basically you have one mountain range, and then on the other side you have another mountain range. And between the two there is a whole plain, flat ground. So from one mountain range of mountains, peaks, to the other side, the entire area, flat area in between, this whole thing is called a wadi. Imagine that's an entire vessel, a big bowl. Like you have a cereal bowl, the edge of the bowl. The edge of the bowl are the mountain peaks around. And the entire area in between is a big bowl. So if you fill the entire area with gold, it's more than what can come in a chest in a room, in a building, in a bank, and it is the entire valley. From one mountain peak to the opposite mountain peak, the entire area in between is filled with gold. That should be enough, right? For many generations. لو كان لابن آدم واد من ذهب, if he has an entire valley full of gold, لتمنى يكون له واديان. He will want to have two valleys full of gold. So, for example, if you're, just as an example, if you're the richest man in the world, that should be enough, right? But then you may be doing all kinds of different drama to become even richer. Like, he's working so hard, sleeping, go sleep in your beautiful bed, right? But no, sleeping here, sleeping this place, and sleeping where Allah knows where else, right? So, what you want more? You understand what you want more? One valley is not enough. You want to get two valleys. The only thing that will fill your mouth and you're like, okay, that's enough, is the dirt of one's grave. So that's hadith. Oh, let me finish the hadith. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned two people are greedy. Then he said, وَلَا يَسْتَوِيَانِ, but they're not equal. I mean, they start off with one common attribute that they both are greedy, but that's it. After that, they're in opposite galaxies. لا يستوي أصحاب النار أصحاب الجنة. They're not on the same plane after that. ولا يستويان, they're not equal. أما صاحب العلم فيزداد رضا الرحمن. The one who has the greed for knowledge, he continues to increase in gaining the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. وأما صاحب الدنيا, the one who has the greed for dunya, فيتمادى في الطغيان. He continues to increase in his disobedience of Allah Ta'ala. So he was haris, he has so much desire. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the hirs for ilm, so that we also have that burning desire to learn the deen. And for this, you have to undergo sacrifices and undergo journeys and Subhanallah. And yeah, so in Kitab al-Ilm, the book of knowledge, there's specific chapters on safar fi talab al-ilm, undergoing journeys to seek knowledge, and undergoing hardships to seek knowledge. This word hirs, Imam Shafi'i mentions it in his poem too, it comes to mind. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i al-Muttalabi, a great Imam of fiqh and hadith and subhanallah, sahib al-madhab, and also a poet. He has his diwan, collection of his poetry. He mentions 6 things which are necessary for a student of knowledge. It's necessary to the level that if you don't have them, then he says, forget it, you'll never get knowledge. Lan tanal al-ilm. So it's not optional, but necessary. He says, Akhi, I'm advising you, Akhi, oh my brother, lan tanal al-ilma illa bistatin. You will never acquire knowledge unless you have 6 things. وَنَبِّيكَ عَنْ تَفْصِيلِهَا بِبَيَانِي. I will give you the detail and I'll explain it to you. What are the 6? ذَكَاءٌ, you have to have intelligence. وَاجْتِهَادٌ, hard work, effort, burning the midnight oil. بُلْغَةٌ, you have to have your physical means that are necessary. If you're starving to death, if you're in a war zone, you can't study. صُحْبَةُ أُسْتَاذٍ أخي إلا بنبيك عن تفصيلها ببياني ذكاء وحرص. I forgot the word. Number 2 is hirs. You have to have passionate desire to study. ذكاء. If you're very intelligent but you don't care, you're not going to progress. You have to ذكاء, intelligence, حرص, واجتهاد, working hard, بلغة, have physical means, وصحبة أستاذ, you have to have the companionship and mentorship of a guide, of a teacher. Self-study will lead to in the path of Iblis. So you have to humble yourself in front of a teacher who has the chain of narration back to Rasulullah, back to Allah Ta'ala. وَطُولُ زَمَانِ, in a long period of time. You can't just do it, part-time or just, here and there on a weekend and you become a alim, a scholar. You have to have tulu zamani, a long period of time. So hirs is necessary. So he had the hirs. So he wanted to ask Umar bin Khattab, anil mar'atain. Who are those 2 women that concerning whom Allah Ta'ala said, in tatuba ilallah, if you do, both of you make tawbah, then Allah Ta'ala will accept your tawbah. Hatta hajja. For a whole year he waited until he was going for hajj, Umar radiallahu anhu. And what happened? وَحَجَجْتُ مَعَهُ. So I joined in the hajj caravan with him. It's unbelievable, the level of him, his desire to and following him. وَعَدَلَ وَعَدَلْتُ مَعَهُ بِإِدَاوَةٍ. So he did udul, he left the path. Adal means there's the normal path that they're traveling, he left the main road. He went off in privacy. Why did he leave the main road? How is it? It's translated here. Interestingly, he said, he went aside. Yeah. Basically, adala means everyone's traveling in the caravan and then he just goes off on a tangent. Why did he go? To go and relieve himself, to answer the call of nature, as they say it in English. The call of nature. Okay. فَتَبَرَّزَ ثُمَّ جَاءَ فَسَكَبْتُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ مِنْهَا. So then when he came back, as we mentioned yesterday, he had prepared the water, as he did with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he started pouring the water for Umar radiallahu anhu to make wudu. فَتَوَضَّى. Now, he is actually engaged in making wudu. So what happens is that you can't do wudu while you're running, or you can't do wudu when you're giving a khutbah. You have to stop. You have to stand in one place to do wudu. That's just the nature of how wudu works. So that's how he captured him. And he's there pouring the water, so he has his undivided attention. There are scholars in the past, but this interaction is not unique to Abdullah bin Abbas and Umar radiallahu anhu. So many examples of this. Of Qura, like their entire day and night, except for the time that they had with their wife and their kids and a little time to sleep, it would be listening to different students, giving them ijazah. He came from Undulus, he came all the way to Madina to study by one of the Qura, and he asked him for a time. He said, my schedule is full. But he said, okay, the wudu reminded me. He said, when I'm making my wudu for the tahajjud, at that time, there's someone I'm listening to on the way there and someone I'm listening to the way back. But when I'm making wudu, there's a slot. So I can listen to you when I make wudu for my tahajjud prayer. And he said, okay, there are a few minutes when he's making wudu, he's listening to him. And then he got his ijazah in the entire Quran. So I said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, manil mar'atani min azwaj Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who are those 2 wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam concerning whom Allah Ta'ala said, in tatuba ila Allah faqad sagat qulubukuma. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, وَعَجَبًا لَكَ يَا ibn Abbas. Oh, that's so strange that you're asking this question. There are different explanations of the scholars of hadith about why he said this. One is that it was a painful reminder for him about a painful incident that happened in his own family with his own daughter. And he didn't necessarily want to make those wounds that have healed with the passage of time fresh once again by revisiting that traumatic incident for him personally as a father of Hafsa radiallahu anha. It was a very traumatic experience because his daughter almost got divorced. So he didn't want to remember that. And this is how some of the shurah and the commentators say that subhanallah, despite the fact that it was so painful for him, he did not hold back. Lam yaktum shay'an. He did not make katmul ilm. Kitmanul ilm is to hold back the knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ said, Man su'ila an ilmin alimahu thumma katamahu uljima yawm al-qiyamah bilijamin min nar. That whoever is asked about knowledge of the deen and he knows the answer but then he withholds it, does not give it. There are some scenarios where it is permissible not to give the entire story if there is some maslahah and some wisdom. But this person, without any justifiable cause, he holds back the knowledge. He says, I'm not going to answer your question. Then uljima yawm al-qiyamah bilijamin min nar, a bridle of fire will be placed in his mouth on the day of judgment. May Allah protect us. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he gave the full uncensored, there's nothing that was redacted. Like when the sometimes the government, they say, okay, now we're going to release the files, but then all the juicy stuff is what? Blacked out, right? Struck from the record. So you really don't know what happened. And then, the conspiracies can continue to thrive because we don't know the real facts. Over here, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not hide identity of anyone, even if it was his own daughter involved. That's one explanation. And another explanation was that this young man, even though he's still young, he was already known for his knowledge of tafsir. So this ta'ajjub and this surprise and amazement is that, are you serious? You tell me you don't know the answer to this even? This is, I thought you would have known this. That's why he's surprised. He said, Huma Aishatu wa Hafsatu. This is Aisha and Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. So what happened was when Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, they made this deal that we're going to ask Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam a question. Did you eat the maghafir, the foul-smelling plant? And when Aisha radiallahu anha asked, he said, no. And then when Hafsa was her turn, she asked the same question. He said, no, what's going on? I only had the honey from Zainab. We covered this last night, but I see some new faces. They may not know what I'm talking about. Well, last night's recording is there. Or you can look up the tafsir of Surah Tahrim, what I'm talking about. So I can't repeat the whole thing. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam took an oath. He said, Wallahi, I will not go back and have that honey again. And he told Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anha this that he has taken this oath and this is from the honey of Zainab. So, and he told her, don't tell anyone. But she ended up going and telling Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha that, this was the plan we had. Now, inshallah, he will spend less time there and spend more time with us. Plan is working. So this is what وَإِذْ أَسَرَّ النَّبِيُّ إِلَى بَعْضِ أَزْوَاجِ حَدِيثًا. When the Prophet ﷺ had given a secret to his wife and she disclosed his secret. And he came back and said, Allah Ta'ala has told me that you have revealed my secret. Why did you do that? فَلَمَّا نَبَّأَهَا بِهِ قَالَتْ مَنْ أَنْبَأَكَ هَذَا. She asked him, who told you about the fact that I divulged the secret? Why did she ask the question? Because she wanted to confirm, was it Aisha radiallahu anha? Because sometimes you tell a secret to somebody and they themselves go and tell the original person. This happens. So she said, who told you? And he said, قَالَ نَبَّأَنِيَ الْعَلِيمُ الْخَبِيرُ. Allah Ta'ala told me. So then she got confirmed that it wasn't that Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha had divulged her secret. Allah Ta'ala said, okay, we covered the surah from yesterday. And so this is Aisha and Hafsa. ثم استقبل عمر الحديث يسوقه. Then Umar went back and started giving the hadith from the beginning. He says, كنت أنا وجار لي من الأنصار. I had a neighbor from the Ansar. في بني أمية بن زيد. وهم من عوالي المدينة. So there was Medina, the city, and عوالي المدينة is the suburbs of Medina. I had an Ansari friend who used to live in the suburbs of Medina. وكنا نتناوب النزول على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Subhanallah. We used to take turns in being in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So just like Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu is so haris and has so much desire to learn from Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu and his Ansari friend had so much desire to learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's like we don't want to miss anything. Because every single day there's so many beautiful things happening. And can you be there physically 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? It's not possible. So we used to take shifts. And the whole idea behind the shifts was that when I'm there, I'm going to note down everything. And you can go take care of your wife and your kids and your business. And then when we have the exchange of the guards, you come and take over the shift. I will share with you whatever happened, every single detail that happened. And then you record for me. So there's always somebody on call. Why? Why did they make this arrangement? Because they want to not allow anything to be missed out. Subhanallah. You see that? Subhanallah. So فَيَنْزِلُ يَوْمًا وَأَنْزِلُ يَوْمًا. One day it would be his turn to sit there and gather the information. One day it would be my turn. Over here they had shifts. There's another pair of brothers that they didn't have this type of shift. One person is always there and the other one is always working. He came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he complained about his brother. So what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَعَلَّكَ تُرْزَقُ بِهِ. Perhaps all the barakah you're having in your earning is because of your brother who's sitting here, gaining the knowledge of the deen. So you never know, when we dedicate someone of our family to learn the deen, Allah Ta'ala can give barakah in the rest of the family's earnings. So what would happen? فَإِذَا نَزَلْتُ جِئْتُهُ بِمَا حَدَثَ مِنْ خَبْرِ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ مِنَ الْوَحْيِ وَغَيْرِهِ. When we would exchange our shifts, I would inform him of all of the events that happened that day. Whether it was a new wahi, new revelation, Allah has revealed what's going on, what are the incidents of the day. وَإِذَا نَزَلَ فَعَلَ مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. When it was his turn, he would do exactly the same. Okay, so this is him and his partner. So what we learn from that is the desire again to seek knowledge. وَكُنَّا مَعَشَرَ قُرَيْشٍ نَغْلِبُ النِّسَاءَ. This is another tangent. He says that the situation in the Quraysh was, the family situation was, the women were more subdued, more submissive to their husbands. The Quraysh, meaning in Makkah al-Mukarramah. The men were very, they had more authority in their homes, in family matters. Then what happens? فَلَمَّا قَدِمْنَا عَلَى الْأَنصَارِ. Then when we moved here to Madina and we joined living with the Ansar, إِذَا قَوْمٌ تَغْلِبُهُمْ نِسَاءُهُم. We ended up living with such people that their women were overpowering their men. That's what the literal translation is. Of course, we're going to have to give a slight explanation of this. فَطَفِقَ نِسَاؤُنَا يَأْخُذْنَ مِنْ أَدَبِ نِسَاءِ الْأَنصَارِ. So there was a lot of cross-learning that took place. He says that our women, they started adopting a lot of the social norms of the Ansari women. Okay? Maybe let me finish this part with some notes on this. فَصَخِبْتُ عَلَى امْرَأَتِي. One day, he said, myself, I got upset and I shouted, I spoke loudly, admonished my wife. فَرَاجَعَتْنِي. And then she replied back. This was something new, because back in the old days, good old days of Makkah, before we came into the new land, right? This would never have happened. So he was kind of shocked by her reply. فَرَاجَعَتْنِي فَأَنْكَرْتُ أَن تُرَاجِعَنِي. And I was shocked. I was astonished. Like, are you really giving an answer back? قَالَتْ وَلِمَا تُنْكِرُ أَن أُرَاجِعَكَ. Why are you so surprised? Like, what's the big deal that I responded back? فَوَاللَّهِ إِنَّ أَزْوَاجَ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يراجعنه. Because even the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sometimes when he says something, then they have a response back. Okay? وَإِنَّ إِحْدَاهُنَّ لَتَهْجُرُهُ الْيَوْمَ حَتَّى اللَّيْلِ. Sometimes, if they get upset, they don't even reply back. One is to reply back and one is to, silent treatment. So they don't even respond. They remain silent out of displeasure till the night. So now this reached a different level for Umar radiallahu anhu. He wasn't even worried about him and his wife anymore. He was worried about who? His daughters. So he says here, فَأَفْزَعَنِي ذَلِكَ. This made me very, very, very scared. And he said, وَقُلْتُ لَهَا. I said to her, my wife, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ فَعَلَ ذَلِكَ مِنْهُنْ. Whoever amongst the wives of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to end up doing this, if Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets finally upset, then they are destroyed. they have such a great loss. Okay, one quick explanation of this is that what he meant was that in the Quraysh, the culture in the Quraysh was that the woman would be very subdued, meaning if there was something the husband said that they did not like, they would be quiet about it by and large. We cannot pass any judgment that is about every single Qurayshi woman. But by and large, the general vibe was that they would not necessarily reply back or engage in a follow-up discussion. They would just say, okay, that's fine. More like, if they Samirna wa Ta'na, or they're Samirna wa Asina, if they're going to do what the husband's saying, they're not going to do. Sometimes they may not do, but they would not engage in talking back. They would just say, okay, whatever. And they would deal with it in their own way. Whereas the culture in the Ansar was they would actually enjoy having that whole back and forth discussion. But I don't want to give an impression that all the Ansari women were disobedient to their husbands, or that they are disobeying Allah Ta'ala's orders, or that there was a complete reverse hierarchy where, instead of الرجال قوامون على النساء, it's النساء قوامات على الرجال. It's not فأمسكوهن بمعروف أو سرحوهن بإحسان. It's فأمسكنهم بمعروف أو سرحنهم بإحسان. It wasn't like that. It wasn't. The male was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the authority to the husband to be the head of the family, whether in Medina or in Makkah. It's just the chemistry, how it would work was a little bit more, it was an active type of relationship in Medina, whereas it was a more quiet type in Makkah. Like if the Ansari Sahabi would finally put his foot down and say, this is how it is in general permissible matters, then the Ansari wife, she may give her response this way, that way, but then she would listen eventually to the Amir of the home. That's just the explanation of that part. Then moving forward, he was very worried about his daughters. ثم جمعت على ثيابي. He gathered up his additional dress, meaning he was wearing dress at home, but then you have the additional dress when you go outside. فنزلت, and he comes down to فدخلت على حفصة. I come to my daughter Hafsa. I came to her and I said to her, فقلت لها أي حفصة, يا هيا أي, right? أي is حرف النداء. أي حفصة, oh حفصة, أتغاضب إحداكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اليوم حتى الليل. Is it true that sometimes some of wives of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, you get upset at Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم until you don't speak till the night? قالت نعم. She says sometimes it does happen. فقلت قد خبتي وخسرتي. Oh my daughter, you are destroyed and you will be in a significant loss if you make your husband upset. أفتأمنين أن يغضب الله لغضب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فتهلكي. Are you safe? Do you feel that if you anger Rasulullah, and because you anger Rasulullah that incurs the anger of Allah, then what's going to happen to you? You will have halaka, you'll be destroyed. Alright, لا تستكثر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Do not ask more money from Rasulullah. This is the father advising the daughter. That's what the whole topic was from Imam Bukhari's perspective. The father is advising the daughter. Don't ask Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam for more money. Do not reply to him when he asks you something. And do not remain silent. See, sometimes speaking too much is a problem. Don't speak too much. Sometimes remaining silent is a problem. Don't give the silent treatment either. Alright? وَسَلِينِي مَا بَدَا لَكِ. If you need something that he's not able to provide for you, ask me. Don't bother your husband, ask me. I'm here still, alive. Your father is here, don't bother Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then he says, وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكِ. Don't be deceived by the behavior of your neighbor. Who's your neighbor? The one who has a hujra next door. Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. Maybe she can afford to do that. This is like the type of conversation father can do with the daughter. He says, look, oh, the aminki. This would not be nice for anyone else to say that she was, subhanAllah, unmarried when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her. Whereas all of the rest of them were widows. Hadith al-Kubra was widowed twice. Hafsa radhiyallahu anha was also widow. So she is more charming than you. That's what the father is saying. Nobody else can say that. Na'udhu billah min zalik. And she is more beloved to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if she is more beloved than Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam may tolerate, her behaving in such a manner. But then if you say, oh, she's behaving like that, I can behave like that. SubhanAllah. Look at the whole beautiful advice of the father to his daughter. And he's making it like really real for her. So don't copy it. Don't say, oh, she's behaving, so if it's good enough for her. If she can do that, I can do that. No, you can't. Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's on record when he was asked, Man ahabbu nasi ilayk? When Sahabi asked him, and he does, out of sight, out of mind. He's not thinking about women. It's not even on the radar. He's asking, Man ahabbu nasi ilayk? Who do you love most? But he used the word nas from all humankind. He didn't specifically ask Rijal. So when he asked this question, he was shocked. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Aisha. SubhanAllah. Then he was like, okay, that wasn't what I was intending. So he said, Mina Rijal ya Rasulullah. No, I meant from the men. He said, Abuha, her father, Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu. So Aisha radiallahu anha is ahabbun nas ila Rasulullah, most beloved to Rasulullah, and you perhaps are great, but you're not there yet. So he tells her, so قال عمر وكنا قد تحدثنا أن غسان تنعل الخيل لغزونا. So then he says, this was the period of time when the talk of the town of Madina was the Ghassan, the Banu Ghassan tribe. They were preparing their cavalry, their horses, to attack us. Tun'ilu literally means the na'al is the na'alain mubarak. What's na'al? Sandals. So they were taking their nails and the hammers, and they were putting they were preparing the hooves of their horses for the attack against Medina. They're getting their cavalry ready. That's what the tun'ilu means. فَنَزَلَ صَاحِبِي الْأَنصَارِيُّ يَوْمَ نَوْبَتِي. Now my Ansari brother, he came down with the news to meet me. He came at the time of Isha. فَضَرَبَ بَابِي ضَرْبًا شَدِيدًا. And he started knocking on my door very hard, vigorously, banging on my door. And I became horrified. فَفَزِعْتُ. And I came out to him. خَرَجْتُ إِلَيْهِ. And I said, he said, a very, very big thing happened today. Amrun azim. Great thing happened. I said, what happened? Have the Ghassan attacked? Because this was a period of time when they were expecting an attack from the Banu Ghassan. He said, La, no, bal a'zamu min dhalik wa ahwa. Something even worse and a greater tragedy than the attack of Ghassan has happened. Now I was shocked. He said, this was, by the way, fake news. Just like, we hear about real news and fake news, by different people talk about that. So this was fake news. It did not happen. He thought it was. He said, طَلَّقَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ نِسَاءَهُ. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given talaq to all his wives. What a great tragedy. This is a greater tragedy than the Banu Ghassan attacking. So he said, فَقُلْتُ. I said, خَابَتْ حَفْصَةُ وَخَسِرَتْ. My daughter Hafsa has destroyed her life. Her future is gone. قَدْ كُنْتُ أَظُنُّ هَذَا يُشْكُ أَنْ يَكُونَ. I thought if they behave the way they are, they're going to continue this path. It's going to end up happening. I guess it happened. So then he goes and he says, فَصَلَّيْتُ صَلَاةَ الْفَجْرِ. Remember, he came and banged on his house at night. So he goes in the Fajr to pray behind Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam entered mashrubatan lahu, a top room. He did not go into his normal hujurat with his wives. He went alone into a separate place, and fa'tazala fiha. He separated himself from all of his wives. Because he had taken an oath. He had gotten upset after this ayah was revealed, and what happened is he had taken an oath. Wallahi, I will not come near my wives for 1 month. Shahran. That was a key term because it plays a role at the end of the narration. 1 month. He said, I won't, but he did not give talaq. So he stayed away from them for a whole month. He did, and after 29 days, then he came back. That's what had happened, just in case we're worried. So since he had left his wives and he had gone to live separately, the Sahaba knew he was angry. He was angry and he left them. So perhaps he had given talaq. That's what they thought. So he went to his daughter Hafsa's room first. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَبْكِي. She was crying. And I said, مَا يُبْكِيكَ. Why are you crying now? What's the point of crying now? Like this is crying over spilled milk. Why did you spill the milk, right? أَلَمْ أَكُنْ حَذَّرْتُكِ. Did I not warn you? I told you that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam may end up divorcing you if you are not going to be more respectful. Did he divorce you? قالت لا أدري. She said, I don't know. So there was a confusion about the status. And this is what Umar helped determine what happened. He has gone and is staying in his room. So he left, Umar came out and he went to the minbar, and there was a lot of people around there who were crying. Yabki ba'd. They're all sitting and crying. Oh, what happened? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is upset. Because what happens if you love someone, their tragedy is your tragedy. And if you love someone, their happiness is your happiness. Why are you getting so happy? No, my friend is getting married. Why are you so happy? Oh, because I love my friend. His happiness is my happiness. Why are you so sad? My friend is getting divorced. His pain is my pain. So the love of Rasulullah was greater than the love any friend has for another friend. That's why they're crying. It wasn't all of their daughters getting divorced, right? It was just the fact that Rasulullah, they loved him so much. So I sat with them for a bit. Everyone's crying and I sat with them crying. But then I was like, wait, I just can't sit here crying. I got to figure out what's going on. ثُمَّ غَلَبَنِي مَا أَجِدُ. Then my feeling of, I got to find out what the status is, it overcame me. So I came to the room of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and there was one slave or servant there, and I said, go ask permission if I want to seek the audience of Rasulullah. So the slave went, and he came back, and he said, I spoke to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I mentioned your name, فَصَامَتَ. He remained silent. So he did not get permission. Then I went back and sat with the people who were crying by the minbar. Then I was overcome with my feelings. So again came to the servant and I said, go seek permission for Umar. He went and he came back. He said, I mentioned your name. He remained silent. Then I came back and sat with a crying group. Everyone's sitting around crying. And then I was again overcome. And I said, oh my, I have to find out. So third time is a charm. So when I went there, he again said, was quiet. And then I was leaving. But as I was leaving, فَلَمَّا وَلَّيْتُ مُنْصَرِفًا, when I was leaving the third time, إِذَا الْغُلَامُ يَدْعُونِي, then all of a sudden he called me back. And he said, قَدْ أَذِنَ لَكَ. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam changed his mind. Even the third time he said no, then he changed his mind. He said, okay, fine, let him come in. فَدَخَلْتُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Then I entered his room. فَإِذَا هُوَ مُضْطَجِعٌ. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is another lesson here. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was laying down. عَلَى رِمَالِ حَصِيرٍ. See, on a bed made of the stalks of the date palm leaves. Such a rough bedding. All right? لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ فِرَاشٍ. And there was no bedding. There was no wool or cotton or any sheet. Just on the stalks of the date palm trees, which is hard material. قَدْ أَثَّرَ الرِّمَالُ بِجَنْبِهِ مُتَّكِئًا عَلَى وِسَادَةٍ مِّنْ أَدَمٍ حَشْوُهَا لَكْدِيفٌ. That was so hard that the stalks had left marks on his body. So there were marks on his body, and he was leaning on a leather pillow stuffed with date palm fibers. Not necessarily fires, but fibers, right? So, فَسَلَّمْتُ عَلَيْهِ. Then I came and said salam. So he was, what you see is a very, very ascetic life, Zahidana life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I said, I was standing there and I said, أَطَلَّقْتَ نِسَاءَكَ. Have you given talaq to your wives? فَرَفَعَ إِلَيَّ بَصَرَهُ. He raised his eyes and he said, La, I have not. So he said, Allahu Akbar. Why he said Allahu Akbar? Alhamdulillah, like praising Allah that it's not all over yet. Maybe there is a chance. So I started to chat with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and I wanted to calm him down. So I wanted to do just some like small talk to reduce his sense of anger or displeasure. I said, Ya Rasulullah, just to lighten the mood. I said, Kunna ma'ashar Quraysh. When we were the Quraysh, we were overpowering our women. But now we came to Madina, look at them, the Ansari women, they talk back. They're more active at home in their conversations. They're overpowering us. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam smiled. فَتَبَسَّمَ. So he saw one good sign. Okay, he's calming down now. Then I said, Ya Rasulullah, I went to Hafsa and I told her, don't be fooled by your co-wife, your neighbor, Aisha. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loves her more than you. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam smiled again. Tabassamatan ukhra, second smile. Then, up till now, 2 smiles he got them standing. He didn't even dare sit down. He barely got in after the third time, right? So, fajalastu. Everybody else, by the way, is still crying by the minbar. They didn't have the courage to go and ask. But Umar had the courage to go. He got rejected 3 times, he still went back. Now, after 2 smiles, he said, okay, now I can sit down. So he sat down. And this is not some like drama we're coming up with. It's there in the words. فَجَلَسْتُ حِينَ رَأَيْتُهُ تَبَسَّمَ. See, I sat down just because I saw that he smiled. Why did he sit down? Because he saw the smile. If Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not smile, he wouldn't have the courage to sit down. He just said, Jazakallah, and he would walk out. And he said, thank God, it's not over. He didn't give talaq. Everyone stopped crying and start, maybe cry tears of happiness. Okay, فَرَفَعْتُ بَصَرِي فِي بَيْتِي. But then I started looking around. فَوَاللَّهِ مَا رَأَيْتُ فِي بَيْتِي شَيْئًا يَرُدُّ الْبَصَرَ غَيْرَ أَهَبَةٍ ثَلَاثَةٍ. He said there was nothing of basic accommodation in his home. There were just some hides of animals and some animal skins. And I said, Ya Rasulullah, ud'u Allah. Why don't you make dua to Allah? فَلْيُوَسَعَ عَلَى أُمَّتِي. Allah should open up and give us some better our financial condition. Because look at you. فَإِنَّ فَارِسًا وَالرُّومَ. The Persians and the Romans, they have so many luxuries and you are in such difficulty. And they have been given the dunya and they don't even worship Allah. So Rasulullah ﷺ got upset about this. He said, he got up. Nabi ﷺ got up for jalasa, and even though he was kana muttaqiyan, meaning he was leaning back, but when he heard this, he got up out of anger. Why are you saying this? He just got the 2 smiles, but he made Nabi ﷺ upset. He didn't realize so. And he said, Awafi hadha anta ibn Khattab. Are you still lost in this wrong understanding? You don't have the correct understanding? How is it translated here? Is it you, O son of Khattab? But it's actually more than that. It means Awafi hadha, meaning are you still lost in this wrong understanding? You don't realize that the dunya doesn't mean anything. It's the akhirah that counts. Inna ulaika qawmun ujjilu tayyibatihim fil hayat dunya. They are those people, Allah has given them all of their good things in this worldly life. They have nothing in store for them in the akhirah. Allah Ta'ala says that if it wasn't that he would be afraid that we would lose our iman, he says in the Quran that he would make libuyut, what is it? سُقُفًا مِّن فِضَّةٍ وَمَعَارِجَ عَلَيْهَا يَظْهَرُونَ وَلِبُيُوتِهِمْ أَبْوَابًا. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Zukhruf that he would make their homes and their stairs and everything made of gold in the world if he wasn't afraid that we would lose our iman. The hadith of Rasulullah as well is that لو كانت الدنيا تعدل عند الله جناح بعوضة ما سقى كافرا منها شربة ماء. If the whole world and everything was equal to one wing of a mosquito, he wouldn't give a kafir even a sip of water. So this dunya has no value. So فقلت يا رسول الله استغفر لي. I said, oh Ya Rasulullah, please ask Allah to forgive me. Please ask Allah to forgive me. I made a mistake. So Nabi Sallam stayed away from his wife from this because he was upset. When Hafsa told the secret to Aisha for 29 nights. Because he had taken the oath, مَا أَنَا بِدَاخِلٍ عَلَيْهِنَّ شَهْرًا. I won't go back for a month. Because of the pain that he felt. And when 29 nights had passed, he came to Aisha radiallahu anha, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, you had said, Aqsamta, you taken an oath that you won't come for a month, and you have come after 29 nights. See, that's why Umar said, don't be like Aisha Siddiqa. She's like at a different level. Like he came back, and she's saying that, didn't you take an oath for shahran? And it's been 29. So did you come one day early, or what's going on, right? Allah. So this is, subhanAllah, the extreme level of, she knew how much Rasulullah ﷺ loved her. That relationship is like very, 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 exactly, at such a high level. It's unbelievable. So she said, Ya Rasulullah, wait a second, it's 29 nights. What's going on? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah Akbar. This is phenomenal. He said, قَالَ الشَّهْرُ تِسْعٌ وَعِشْرُونَ. Nabi Sallam said, a month can also be 29. See, if people, you'll say, wait, February is 28, and then after that you have 30, 31. Where's 29? Islamically, Gregorian calendar, the solar calendar, you have 30, 31, and then you have the 28. Okay, 29 may be in the leap year. I just remember that one. In February, but when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was saying 29, it's because Islamically, you never have 31 days. You never have 28 days. It's either 29 or 30. That's what he's referring to. See, a month can also be 29. So, 29 could also be a month. And then what happened? Let's see. فَكَانَ ذَلِكَ شَهْرُ تِسْعٍ وَعِشْرِينَ لَيْلَةً. That month ended up actually being 29 nights. ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى آيَةَ التَّخَيُّرِ. Then Allah Ta'ala revealed an ayah that you have a choice. O wives of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you have a choice. That if you want to remain a wife of Rasulullah, you can remain. Ya Nisa an-Nabi, O wives of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if you want to remain his wife, in kuntunna turidna Allah wa Rasulahu wa dar al-akhirah, if you want Allah and the Rasul and the eternal abode, then be happy with whatever you are given. And in kuntunna turidna al-hayat ad-dunya wa zinataha fata'alayna wa matti'kunna wa sarihkunna sarahan jamila. And if you want dunya, then come, I will divorce you. So all the wives were given this choice, and each one was independently asked, and they had to give a verbal confirmation. You know, like the air stewardess says, are you ready to help in an event of an accident? If you're just like, whatever, like somebody else happened in the past, if you don't give a proper response, the flight's not going to leave. You're going to have to leave your seat, right? I need a verbal confirmation. Are you going to be ready to help in an event of an accident? Because you're sitting in the emergency role. You have to give a verbal response. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went one by one to each wife and said, I need a verbal response. Are you pleased to be my wife or not? So what happened is, she says, فَبَدَأَ بِي أَوَّلَ امْرَأَةٍ مِّن نِسَائِهِ. He asked me first. I was the first person he asked, and I told him, of course, I will love you. He said, make mashwara from your father and Abu Bakr. I don't need to make mashwara about this. فَاخْتَرْتُ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَالدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. I chose Allah and the Rasul. and they all selected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there are so many lessons along the way we learned in this hadith, beautiful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amongst them is one thing that I just want to highlight is how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated the status of His Prophet and how much He came on his defense and showed us how we need to respect him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our hearts with His love and allow us to be inspired by these beautiful incidents and fall in love not only with him but with all of the Sahaba and Sahabiyat. Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.